Tonight, the Electoral Commission finally suspends controversial voter registration exercise indefinitely with the coronavirus as the excuse.
Because of the coronavirus, we are not pursuing them as it is. Just Ghana Health Services and other health experts. So they are also monitoring the situation and advising us. So when it gets to a time they think that the situation is better for us to go ahead with the registration.
Plus, the Ghana Medical Association is tonight calling on the president to declare a nationwide lockdown. We have details.
This is Top Story with Evans Mentor.
And Top Story is always brought to you by Bond Savings and Loans. Your success, our passion. Also brought to you by Gassem Cement, the nation building. Vodafone, the future is exciting. Ready. 68 confirmed cases, 3 dead, and many more waiting to know their fate. That is the latest for you on the Ghana fight against the deadly coronavirus. That fight has tonight finally forced the Electoral Commission to indefinitely suspend the controversial voter registration exercise following an inter-party advisory committee meeting today that was itself fraught with controversy and a walkout by the NDC and other political parties. I'm going to get you more on that story, but now, though, I want to start with the statement from the Ghana Medical Association. Remember that the Electoral Commission itself had been forced now to suspend the voter registration exercise based on advice they're getting from the health experts because of the coronavirus pandemic. Well, tonight there is a statement from the Ghana Medical Association that had just come in the last hour and making a call on the president to declare a nationwide lockdown. My colleague Araba Kumsing joins me with details of this. Do they explain why?
Well, first of all, I have to say that the statement is signed by its president, Dr. Frank Ankobia, and the General Secretary of the Medical Association, Dr. Justice Yankson. And what they're saying is that the Ghana Medical Association, being fully conscious of the threat posed by this pandemic, the disturbing trend of community spread, and the obvious inadequate capacity, that is, logistics and human resource, of the nation's health system to deal with increased numbers of COVID-19 infection, especially severe and critical cases, hereby call on His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Ghana, to declare a nationwide lockdown with the exception of essential services, food, water, and medicine businesses with immediate effect. And it goes on to say that the lockdown, though may not be a comfortable decision for leadership and citizens alike, is a proven option backed by science and along with other measures will ultimately be in our best interest. And they call on Ghanaians to support the move in the national interest to save the country from the devastating effects of the pandemic.
Well, I'm grateful, Araba. Thankfully, I've just been joined on the telephone line right now by the General Secretary of the GMA, who co-signed this particular statement, Dr. Justice Yankson. Mr. Yankson, thank you for your time here on Top Story.
Thank you, Ivan.
Yesterday, this matter came up. I spoke to the Information Minister. His point was, so far, the health experts that are advising government have said it's too early, it's premature to go into a lockdown. You seem to say differently. Why?
Well, we have done our own situational analysis, and then we've also thrown this question out there for everybody. What is the essence of the lockdown? What the lockdown seeks to achieve is to break the chain of transmission. Now, the question we should ask ourselves, do we want to go to the levels of Italy, Spain, and the likes before we try to break the chain of transmission? Or we do it now and save our healthcare system? We have a system or a health system that is not as robust as that of others. And as things stands now, we also are not in control of medical supplies because most of them are actually brought into the country from elsewhere. And at this crucial point in time, where virtually every country is actually trying to mobilize them all that they can to fix their own COVID-19 problems, it has become imperative that, look, we take these measures to contain the spread of the disease now. As they say, prevention is better than cure. If probably we had locked down our borders earlier, I'm sure we might not have even had a single case as of now. But even if we had cases, we would have dealt with them at the point at which they entered the country. Clearly, our health service is not capable of handling excess of COVID-19 cases, especially the severely ill and critically ill patients. As we speak, we started losing lives, and the trend seems to be like it's elsewhere. Those who have underlying health problems, those who have some comorbid conditions, and the aged are succumbing. Now, we are very much conscious of the potential difficulties, in quote, that citizens may complain of. But which is better? We sacrifice now and save the state called Ghana, or we allow things to degenerate and potentially perish.
But you say a nationwide lockdown. Yesterday, Dr. Michael Owusu with KCCR, who we've been speaking to on this subject, make the point that a lockdown should be backed by data, as in you have to trace where the hotspots, where your epicenters are, and once you've done that through active testing, you know where the community spreading is happening precisely. Then you do targeted lockdown that is more effective than a countrywide lockdown when possibly you don't have a case in the Bono Hafo region, in the Bono region, for example. Isn't this too wide a net to cast over the entire country where we don't have the science to back it yet?
It is not about science. It is about what the world is seeing. Look, countries that hesitated in taking drastic measures, we've all seen what the disease has done to them. The United States, especially the states of New York and New Jersey, see how they are struggling. Look at Spain. Look at Italy. Korea that took urgent measures and very proactive measures has cases, but at least they are beginning to reverse the trend. As it stands now, if you want to wait and get all the data and get all the logistics, the nature of our society is slightly also different from elsewhere. Here we have a lot of communal living. We have a lot of people crammed into houses and compound houses and rooms because of the huge housing deficit. So if we allow cases to filter through and then the community itself begins to suffer the fate that others are suffering, we think it will be suicidal. Yes, I can agree to the suggestion that, well, maybe we can do a phase kind of exercise. But for us, we are calling on the president to look at the country in its totality. There's also the propensity or the tendency for us to be relaxed in other areas of the country. But in the wisdom of the president, if they think that, or if he thinks that we should target, in quotes, the very hotspots as early as possible with the very extreme measures, and also have a bit of, relaxed approach to some extent, not necessarily going back and sitting aloof without watching, but maybe trying to say that, well, since we haven't found it elsewhere, we are trying to relax. But it is this same relaxation that has landed us where we are.
I hear your argument about what is happening elsewhere in the world, but every country, every culture will have peculiarities one day. Ghana, we have our own peculiarities. The majority of this population is an informal sector. A lot of them live hand to mouth on the daily basis. If you put everybody else on the lockdown, the average, you're seeing on an average of 4 weeks lockdown. That's the minimum you will get. We've seen across the world. That will put lots of life at risk and will jeopardize this economy and will put even more lives at risk. Seeing the vast number of poor people who will need to go out to get water, basic necessities of life, you have to tailor-make this lockdown for Ghana, won't you?
Well, like we said in our statement, in as much as we are asking for a lockdown, we're also mindful of some of these things. For which reason, we stated that there should be an exception. And that exception applies to essential services and supplies, such as food, water, and medicine. So it is not as if we are saying that we should all be under lock and key for 24 hours. But at least we know, and we also are not oblivious of the fact that essentials like food, water, medicines are important for the survival of all of us. It is time the state invests in all of us as well. But truth be told, if we don't take proactive steps now, we'll stand to lose in the long run.
Can we afford the lockdown, though? A nationwide lockdown? Can we afford that?
It depends on how we treat the lockdown. It depends on how we treat the lockdown. I mean, like you're saying, the measures may be in the hotspots like Accra, Tema, Kumasi, and to an extent Obuasi that has cases. Maybe we can look at the extreme of measures. But with the others, maybe we can relax it slightly by some slight percentage to ensure that there's free movement of goods, and stuff like that. It is more about the human movement. That is the key thing. So we can decide that, look, in spite of all this, we can allow the cargo trucks to bring food and the essential, things that we need to and through. But that way, the movement would have been curtailed and it will also be regulated. So a lockdown does not necessarily mean that everything should be put under lock and key, for which reason we'll all be in our rooms for the next weeks or months or whatever. But at least we will allow the basic essentials to move around.
And I know the GMA, you are at the table with government in dealing with this particular pandemic as it relates to us here locally. Have you used that opportunity at least to make this point to the Ghana Health Service and Health Ministry and government officials we've been working with?
As far as the health authorities are concerned, we have actually passed on what we think is the right thing to do. Yesterday we had some meetings and all that. We've passed on what we believe is essential at this point for all of us.
So I wonder then why the need then to make a public pronouncement on the matter when you have formally put in a request at that level, which I guess maybe is being considered?
Basically, this is advocacy. Basically, this is what we are doing.
What sort of response did you get when you put forward this proposal to the team you're working with for the government?
Well, as far as we are concerned, they've taken the advice. It's been considered, but as to what the final decisions will be like, we cannot preempt those ones because we don't make those decisions.
And in terms of thinking through this, how long a lockdown is the GMA proposing?
Well, it's very difficult to actually pin timelines down. But now that we don't have a lot of cases, if we are able to contain it very well, then automatically this shouldn't take a longer period than probably we all would think. But of course, even where we are at the point where there are no cases or all cases in the country have properly been treated and have recovered and what have you, at least our international borders should still be locked till we are at a point where we think that importation of cases wouldn't also be a problem for us.
Well, Justice Yangsing, I'm grateful that you join us. That is Dr. Justice Yangsing. He's the General Secretary of the Ghana Medical Association, and they have tonight issued a statement asking the President of the Republic to declare a nationwide lockdown. What's your own take on this? You've heard their justification for calling for this. They believe it is inevitable and will happen later. Why don't you do it now? That's what they believe. What do you think? By the way, this is the official government reaction to the calls for a lockdown. Yesterday, I spoke to the Information Minister about these calls. The GMA is not the first, body to make this. The minority in Parliament had made this. In fact, an MPP member of Parliament made same. The Noguchi Memorial Institute director yesterday also made the point that the next 1 and 2 weeks will be critical for government, and they have to make a decision either way, whether or not to impose a lockdown. This is Kojo Ponkoma responding to that.
Testing. Is government considering a lockdown? Let me say that all options are on the table. All options are on the table. Government continues to receive advice which is subjected to analysis by the experts. And let me take you back a little bit. In these times, you would understand that there's a lot of agitation and commentary and suggestions from all quarters. But we must trust the process and allow the experts to advise the decision makers to make a good decision. In the very beginning, there was a lot of agitation, fly the students in China and bring them back home. The experts advised that it was not a good thing to do. Though that decision at the time it was made appeared a bit unpopular, events in following weeks have proven that the experts got it right and the decision makers got it right by taking the advice of the experts. There's a lot of talk, a lot of agitation, lockdown, because we are seeing it on TV, etc., and other places. Different jurisdictions have different dynamics when it comes to even food supply or essential service supply, etc. So the decision to lock down or not is not one that is taken lightly or because we've seen other persons doing it. The experts continue to provide the advice to the decision makers. His Excellency the President sits down at 6 p.m. every evening with the COVID-19 response team made up of experts from all over, and they give that advice. It's subjected to interrogation. He doesn't take those decisions lightly. So all options are on the table. But at this stage, the advice and the consideration is to go in accordance with the measures that we have gone with, and it is bearing fruits. We ask that if anybody has views and ideas, particularly from the medical community, security committee, etc., your colleagues are at the table, your superiors are at the table. Please channel them through all of them so that it can be brought to bear on the discussions that are being taken.
Another story we are following for you tonight, the main story, of course, is the Electoral Commission's decision tonight to suspend indefinitely the controversial decision to register voters afresh for this year's election. That registration exercise that has split the country into two, really, tonight has been suspended indefinitely. Listen to the EC's Director of Electoral Services, Dr. Srebo Kwaku, speaking to journalists after a very tense and controversial inter-party advisory committee meeting today, at which the NDC and other political parties staged a walkout.
The pandemic situation that we find ourselves.
Right.
So we thought that there was a need for us to divide them into two, so that we will not bring more than 25 people into the room. So we split them into eight parties per each group. We met the first group around 10 o'clock, the second one at 2 o'clock. So basically because of the social distancing issue that we are to observe because of the outbreak of the coronavirus.
The argument has been that there wouldn't be any meaningful consensus out of this meeting because they wouldn't know what Group A discussed and what Group B also discussed. So there might be a little bit of confusion and conflicting report coming out from both groups.
That was the suspicion, but at the meeting you realized that wasn't the case, because it's like we were just telling them the activity that we want to undertake,
right.
And because of the coronavirus, we are not pursuing them as it is. Just that. So if you have any question, you ask. And if the person was perceiving before the meeting, now the post-meeting, the activities or the during the meeting activity doesn't support the suspicion.
So talking about coronavirus, is that going to affect the EC's timetable?
Exactly, and that's exactly what we wanted to tell them. Because
so what did you tell them?
Yeah. One
right, so what did you tell them? I mean,
we told them that we had planned to do the registration on the 18th.
Right.
But because of the pandemic, we can't do it on the 18th. So we are observing what is happening around Ghana and the global issue. We are with the Minister of Health and Ghana Health Services and other health experts. So they are also monitoring the situation and advising us. So when it gets to a time they think that the situation is fertile for us to go ahead with the registration, then they tell us, now you can do A, B, C. Then we implement and then go ahead and do.
So for now, the 18th is on hold.
It's on hold.
It's not. If it's on hold, means that
has it been suspended?
Suspended.
Suspended.
So it can be 18th. Yes.
It can't be 18th.
Exactly.
That is
yes, it's a fact. So
in the interim, what is the party doing?
So we are thinking of what party?
The EC is still doing.
I'm not a political party.
No, in the interim, what is EC doing?
Yes. So what we are telling them is that we are thinking of going towards ending of April or early May.
Okay, so that is the EC's Director of Electoral Services there, Dr. Sribo Kwaku. On the telephone line with me right now is the General Secretary of the NDC, Johnson Sedun Ketia. Also with me is the National Organizer of the MPP, Mr. Samir Uku. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your time here on Top Story.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think I still have Mr. Johnson Sedun Ketia on the line. I've lost Samir Uku. Mr. Sedun Ketia, please, your reaction to the announcement today by the Electoral Commission that they are suspending the registration indefinitely.
Hello?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, I can hear
Yes, your reaction to the EC's announcement after the IPAC that they are suspending the voter registration exercise indefinitely.
As far as we are concerned, it's just about raking some history just to revive dead news. It is no news to us because hasn't the Electoral Commission earlier on issued a statement to that effect that they have suspended the registration indefinitely? So what is new about it? It's been issued in a statement form more than a week ago. And as far as we are concerned, there was no IPAC today because IPAC is a contrivance that has been agreed upon by political parties as key players. IPAC is not just something the Electoral Commission has put together and they are at will to change its composition at any time. So we received a letter about IPAC, and we realized that there was no IPAC, so our people could not participate.
Why do you say there was no IPAC, if we can explain that?
Because IPAC is Inter-Party Advisory Committee, which is aimed at forging consensus among political parties as to how to change or maintain electoral rules, how to set electoral rules generally with Electoral Commission. And through, we are members, political parties are members of IPAC, and then we have agreed on the composition of IPAC and procedures that we apply at IPAC. And so nobody, Electoral Commission cannot suo motu just get up and say that I have directed that IPAC should be represented by one person from a political party. When indeed we took a decision at IPAC, it wasn't anything Electoral Commission imposed on us. We took a conscious decision at IPAC that every political party must be represented by 3 persons. So it doesn't lie within the power of Electoral Commission to determine that we have decided that one person will be representing IPAC. And again, it does not make sense for Electoral Commission to say that the same subject is going to be discussed among political parties. So half of you will do one segment of the meeting, take your decisions and close. Then the other half will do the second segment in the afternoon. We didn't see any sense in such an arrangement because it doesn't pass as IPAC at all. The representation is not that of IPAC, and again, the move of holding the meeting in 2 segments is not that of IPAC. So we wrote, when we were invited to such a meeting, we wrote to them that one, the nation has passed an emergency powers law. And that law has indicated services are essential services. So if the government decides that of Electoral Commission is an essential service, the president has power to issue an executive is an essential service, so they are not covered by the emergency laws, so they can continue their work. In which case, then we know the Electoral Commission will continue. And in that case, if we are taking protective measures, we can get space so that we can observe the social distances and protect ourselves from the coronavirus. But you have a situation where you are not told it is an essential service, and yet all its activities are going on as if there was no presidential directive.
Well, as it is now, as it is from what we heard after the IPAC meeting, the registration obviously now is following to comply with the directive, and it's not going to happen. At least they haven't set a date. Well, the Director of Electoral Services says they are thinking about late April or early May, but even that is subject to expert medical advice. I wonder if, based on that information, the timeline they're giving themselves, is this something that you welcome at all?
There is nothing new because they have issued a letter to inform us. So if that was what they went to discuss at that meeting, then the meeting was unnecessary in the first place. Because they have already issued a public notice that the registration could not come on 18th.
Yeah. So what's your reaction to that position then of the EC? That position in the statement that has been rearticulated today?
So what was the purpose of the meeting?
They said to formally sort of communicate it to the parties and get them to know what the EC tends to do now in the wake of coronavirus.
So wouldn't they have included this in the letter of invitation that in view of the outbreak of coronavirus, we are just confirming to you or affirming the contents of the communique we issued earlier on that the registration couldn't take place on 18th of April. So what is the purpose of that?
I want to bring in Mr. Sami Wuku, who is also joining me. Mr. Wuku, the MPP, you were part of this IPAC meeting. You participated fully. We've had a communication post that from the EC Electoral Service that it's not going to happen again, the Electoral Voters Register compilation, at least indefinitely until health experts advice. Your reaction?
Well, good evening, and good evening to your cherished listeners. For us in the MPP, we participated fully, as you indicated today, led by our General Secretary himself. We welcome the news, of course. We are in extraordinary times. We are not in normal times, and that is why even we have this whole social distancing and other protocols outlined by government and then health authorities and health experts. So it's not out of place for any gathering beyond that 25 and for social distancing purposes, for the Electoral Commission to say, look, let's also segment even our meetings. For us, even as political parties, now we've been more or less compelled to even more or less organize our programs and even our activities in such a way that we also do not infringe on the law. So back to your earlier question as to whether we welcome it or our position on it and all. We believe that it's a sound call. It's a call that we believe is in line with the President's directive and subsequently what has been outlined by public health experts and health authorities for us to also follow. So we welcome it, and it is our hope and prayer that after the expiration of that interim ban on some of these activities and movement, we can see our way clear based on the advice given to government by health experts and health authorities. So, as I said, we are not in normal times, and as has been indicated by many people, we are in extraordinary times. So, a time comes when sacrifices must be borne in the supreme interest of our country and our people. So I believe that it's a right call.
Thank you very much, Sami Wuku. Thank you very much, Johnson Sudin Ketia, who you had earlier on this all-important conversation. Now we know the voters register conversation that has divided the opinions across political, civil society lines will not happen, at least for the foreseeable future, until health experts advise otherwise. But I must be clear, though, the EC said today that they will certainly do this at a later date. And so we watch this space very closely. Newsnight starts right now.